The Players' Championship is underway at TPC Sawgrass, featuring 48 of the top 50 golfers in the world and the largest purse, $25 million to be exact, of the season. Welcome to episode 189 of ATL Prime Sports. I'm JJ Jurjevich. Joining me this evening is our fabulous producer, Wayne Ridenauer, in wonderful Memphis, Tennessee. And my co-host this evening is Larry Gardner, your PA voice of the Rome Emperors, and heck, Georgia Tech too as well for baseball, football, a little bit here and there, a little bit of jack of all trades. Again, Larry Gardner joining us this evening. You can catch us all at ATL Prime Sports on Facebook, Instagram, X, of course, YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. Our personal X's at JJ Get You One for myself, at RWY Jr. for Wayne, at LG for Real Though for Larry Gardner, and at Corder Todd, who is broadcasting play-by-play hockey for the ACHA Nationals in St. Louis, Missouri. We wish him a great call this evening and for the next 2 weeks for that matter. Wayne, how you doing, buddy?
Well, I'm doing all right, but I tell you who's doing really well is Mr. Christopher Bell. He up and won a third race in a row out there in Phoenix. And if he wins again this weekend in Las Vegas, then that will put him in the same company as Mr. Bill Elliott for winning the first 4 races after the Daytona 500. And I think he did that back in 1991. So it's pretty elite group there to win the first 4 races after the Daytona 500 because that is such a difficult race to win.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive the start to the season that young driver has had. Excited to see what the NASCAR season brings forward. Larry, how are you this evening, buddy?
Doing well, JJ, but not as well as Myles Garrett, who just played the Cleveland Browns for one of the biggest contracts in defensive NFL history. Trade me, I ain't going to play for you. I ain't going to meet with the management, but then I'm going to turn around and sign you for $40 million plus a year. Man, listen, can I hold $1? But no, man, everything is well around this end, JJ. I appreciate you for asking, man. How you been doing?
Man, I'm doing well. Yeah, you could say the same thing. Max Crosby, you're the highest paid non-quarterback. It's like Oprah in here. No, Myles Garrett, you're the highest paid non-quarterback. No, I'm doing well. Not as well as Lucas Glover, though. Tied for first after round 1 at the Players with Vigaris and J.J. Spawn. He had 9 birdies, Glover did, through the round and ended with 4 in a row, fellas. 4 birdies in a row to take the lead. Well, tie for the lead at the Players' Championship. Pretty impressive. So I'm doing well. I wish my golf game was that good. What's on tap for today? Some March Madness bracket talk, and we'll get into NFL free agency and kind of specify what the Falcons did, good or bad. We'll get into all that. But let's tip this show off with some NCAA basketball talk. Selection Sunday is this week. Is your team in or out? Who can make a run? We talk all of it right here on ATL Prime Sports. Without further ado, guys, let's talk about who we think are the last 4 teams in this tournament as we stand right now at 8:15 p.m. on a Thursday, March 13th. Larry, what do you say? Who's your last 4 in? Who's your last 4 out? If you want to get into that, we'll stick to the ends right now, and then we'll go to Wayne, and we'll have a fun little basketball discussion, man. It's March Madness.
Yeah, man. After the game, and we talked about it off air before our pregame meeting, man. I think Texas is one of the last 4 to begin in after their win today. I would almost be willing to say either Indiana or Ohio State because the Big Ten gonna be well represented there.
Yep.
I'd even almost throw North Carolina in just because of the blue blood history. Their record doesn't really show that they should also be in, but people love to see it and they're gonna get support. And you know, as TC always says, it's all about the dollar. So of course that's gonna be a big draw. And a team that we're used to seeing make some noise in this time of year, but really hadn't had a lot to say up to this point is Xavier. You know, we're used to seeing Xavier being one of the top 6 ranked teams in either bracket. You know, we're used to seeing them doing some damage as a mid-major during the tournament, but Of course, this season and right around that mid-tier level, I think they could also be one of the last four in. One of my first four out. I got to go Villanova. I think Villanova is going to be one of the first four out. I think Wake Forest, depending on how, well, no, I ain't even gonna say depending on how. I think Wake Forest is done.
Yeah, I agree.
I think Wake Forest is done. I think Georgia gets in. I had to think about it for a minute because the SEC, man, it's almost like in football, and I didn't never think that day would have come where we would be talking about SEC college basketball in the same mantra or in the same light as we do SEC football. But the Georgia Bulldogs football team played one of the hardest schedules in college football. Georgia and most of everybody in the SEC, when you talk about strength of schedule, that's got to be a factor when you come into selection Sunday.
Yeah.
Same concept with the Big Ten, though, man. You got so many different teams. That's why I'm like, if I think Indiana gets in, then Ohio State has to be out, just by virtue. And I
Similar
hate it for Mike
resumes
Woodson,
as well.
Yeah, because I'm a Mike Woodson fan, even though he was trash when he was here with my Hawks. Ooh, man, I don't know if I can give you another one out, man. Just off the top of my head, without having like any notes right here behind me, those are the ones that come to mind, man. It's so much even playing field that anybody can be anybody. I don't envy the selection committee come this Sunday, man, because you're talking about so many different characteristics and qualifiers that can either get you in or out. It's going to be some disappointed kids all over the country, like there is every year. But I think this year more so because there's so many teams that are deservingly have the right to get in and probably won't.
Yes. No, I agree with everything you said. I'm right there with you on Wake Forest. They're one of my first four out. I am with you on Ohio State or Indiana. I think either one of them could get in, or you could see them both get out, be out of the tournament looking in. My first four, I share your sentiment with UNC because of the pedigree, 22 wins in a pretty good ACC conference. But honestly, I wouldn't be too terribly surprised nor upset if they get left out completely because they've only had one win versus the AP top 25 or quad one wins, whatever way you want to digress it. They just haven't had many great wins. But 22 wins usually gets you in that tournament. And again, it is about eyeballs and the dollar. So I agree with you on that sentiment. For me, I think Texas did enough last night in an extremely tough SEC conference and another one of the tougher schedules in the country. They have 5 wins versus top 25 opponents. Again, they just added a quality win versus A&M earlier today in the SEC tournament, winning in double overtime. They played Tennessee in the quarterfinals. They have a shot to really, if they win that game, solidify themselves in the tournament and maybe not even be in that play-in game. But right now, I have Texas and UNC as 11 and 12 seeds playing in that 11 and 12 seed game. So I think I had UNC in my 11, Texas in my 12 play-in. My third final 4 team in, not final 4 team, but final 4 teams in. I got Colorado State. I'm going to go outside the box here. 16 wins in a tough Mountain West conference, 22 overall. One of the best teams in the country and moving the ball around. 31st in assists per game, right around I think it was about 16, right at that 17 mark in between that range. So they move the ball around. And it's one of the reasons I like Xavier as my last final. So we have 3 of the similar ones. Xavier, 21 and 11 overall record, 13 and 7 again in a tough Big East conference, and they have 2 top 25 wins. And also another team that likes to move the ball around. Their 17 assists a game is good for 26 in the country. And when you can move the ball around in a tournament like this, it really creates offense. And I've said this before. You'll hear me say it again. Teams in tournaments that are able to stop runs when a team is trailing and kind of trying to make a comeback, they're able to win the game when you can stop runs and make runs last. So when you get that 8-0 run, that 10-0 run, that 12-0 run, and you can stretch it to 14 or 16 with that extra pass, I like teams like that. I think Xavier and Colorado State get in, and I think they could do some damage. You might hear me talk about them again right here. Wayne, give me 4 teams you think are in, and maybe even a couple if you want to talk about teams that are out. But I'm with you right there with you, Wayne, on Larry, on Wake Forest and Villanova being done, and then either Ohio State or Indiana or both might be one of those first 4 teams out as well. Wayne, what you got?
Well, I am one of the ones going for the Indiana, Ohio State last 4 in, along with North Carolina and Texas. And if I'm going to say who's the first 4 out, I'm going to say San Diego State, Xavier, Boise State, and Villanova.
Yeah, Boise State had a tough run. That Mountain West Conference, again, pretty good with San Diego State in there as well. It wouldn't surprise me if you see a couple teams get in from that conference that you aren't necessarily expecting. A lot of good teams at that 68 to 76 in terms of getting in the tournament. 68 being the last guy in. 72, 73 NIT teams, things like that. There's a lot of decisions to be made. And Larry, you're right. I would not want to be on this committee this year because there's going to be a lot of people barking up a tree saying, well, we played these and they didn't play anybody. And it's always fun to talk about it and see if those teams turn around and make a run. And Georgia was kind of one of those teams last year. They were on the were they going to be a first 4 in? They were kind of on the outskirts, and then they made a big run in the NIT tournament. And that gets us to our next category, guys. Unless you want to talk about the first 4 in, last 4 out, just teams in general right quick. Any final thoughts on that, guys?
No.
Move forward. And we'll go with teams that could potentially make a deep run. This could be your Blue Bloods. This could be a Cinderella, someone that you think is going to make a good run in this tournament. And I bring this question up, fellas, because Cooper Flagg went down in the Georgia Tech game today, was seen in a wheelchair, really rolled his ankle pretty badly. Don't know. He's questionable, especially for tomorrow's quarterfinal, semifinal or quarterfinal. I forget where they are in the bracket, but he's very questionable in that game. And moving forward, will he be healthy enough to carry this Duke team and put the weight on his shoulders like he has the whole season? Shire's got a real question mark in front of him with one of the best players in the country. So does Duke still hold a lot of bracket power? People start holding off on Duke in the brackets. That's going to be something real fun to talk about. Larry, Wayne, I'll go with you guys. What are your thoughts on Cooper Flagg's injury status and the chances of Duke making a deep run going forward? Larry, we'll start with you first, buddy.
No, I think, when he has essentially been the MVP of college basketball for that team this year. And when you lose that kind of talent, it's always going to hurt. But the thing that the Blue Devils have done very well this season is they have recruited well, and they are a very, very deep team. So while his absence will be felt, I think if it's just what we probably anticipate being a high ankle sprain instead of something actually broken or torn, if it's just a normal high ankle sprain, you're talking 2 weeks. I think they can win their first 2 games that first opening weekend of the tournament. Now you start talking, can they get Sweet 16 or Elite 8? That it may be tough because, like we said earlier, I hate to show this bias, but the records speak for themselves. There's a good shot that you could have an SEC team in the Final Four and have 4 SEC teams.
Yeah, depending on how the bracket shapes up, absolutely.
And with that being, depending on how everything shakes out, Houston is going to make some noise. We know they're going to make some noise. They always do. It's just such a well-coached team, They'll probably be a 1. I'd imagine that they'd be a 1 seed, but his injury is probably going to be able to be covered up for maybe the first 2 games. Now, Sweet 16, Elite 8, depending on who they match up against, you could run into some problems. But I mean, to answer the question as it was posed, Duke can still weather the storm for the rest of the ACC tournament. They can weather the storm, probably the round of 64 and then the round of 32. I would question it if he's not healthy by the Sweet 16. Then I would start to raise an eyebrow and say, "Ooh, Duke might be in trouble," depending on who the matchup is, because the physicality of the Big Ten, the shooting prowess of the Big East, the physicality of the SEC, and how they love to play big grown man basketball, but the pace too. So, there's so many different variables that can go into play for Duke. I think they're good. They're well coached enough. They're deep enough that they can weather the first two. But outside of that, who knows? Now, for your second part of that question as to who can make a deep run, I mean, it's a crapshoot, man. Depending on how the brackets shake out, without knowing how they're going to shake out, it's hard to tell. But I'll tell you some teams that I really like watching on TV, and they have impressed me so far with what they've done, that aren't your probably top seed or not going to be a top seed. But y'all have heard me say this the last couple of weeks. I love what Missouri is able to do, how they can shoot the ball, how they play good defense. I love the fact that they do what they do. They could make a deep run. Clemson could make a deep run. It wouldn't surprise me in the least bit if Clemson made a deep run in the playoffs or in the tournament. That wouldn't surprise me. I'll tell you somebody else. Wisconsin could make a deep run, depending on how things shake out. One more team that comes to mind real quick, and this ain't even your typical. They're not where they typically would be this year, but Gonzaga could make a deep run. So so many different possibilities, but we know this to be true. We know a 12 is going to be the 5, and it's probably going to happen multiple times. So you can go ahead and pencil that in your bracket just to figure out which one it is. You could probably almost even go 11-4, 11-4 seed. You might get that too. So, as I said earlier, man, the parity for this year's college basketball season has been so even, and it's all due to the transfer portal and NIL money, and you really aren't having to recruit high school kids. You're already recruiting kids that have college experience, and it's plug and play. Wayne and I was talking maybe a couple of weeks ago where you're liable to have a team full of fifth-year seniors that have only played for the team for 1 year.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you're able to sustain things now where it's the opposite of what one and done used to do. One and done is now being, okay, transfer portal and fill the holes. It is literally free agency. So I know that was a long-winded answer and whatnot, but there's so many different teams, man, that can make a potential long run.
I think it was a great answer. To heck with the long-windedness, it was accurate. I think, and I'll save my Cinderellas for the next one. I'm going to go with my favorites in the bracket. I do think Bruce Pearl and Auburn, they have a veteran squad. I think that is a huge asset moving forward. They play defense. Duke, if they get Cooper Flagg back, is a absolute menace on the floor. But here's why I say Cooper Flagg, and I asked that question about Duke, and kind of going back and answering everything with you, Larry, in this conversation. I don't think I've ever seen a kid lead in all 5 major statistical categories for one team, and that team being the Duke Blue Devils. There's always a better rebounder or a better shot blocker, but this guy leads in points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks all the way across the board. That's how elite of a player Flagg is. So I don't know how well they'll be able to weather the storm in the second round of things, because that's when the tournament gets a little less chaotic. Because after day one, when things settle down, you get into your groove a little bit, a little less upsets happen as the tournament goes by. So I think the health of Cooper Flagg will be the biggest story of this tournament moving forward because of the elite player he is. I mean, he averages nearly 20 a game, 7.5 rebounds a game, 4 assists. Again, he just lights up everything. And great coach team with a player like that, it might deflate the momentum in that locker room a little bit. I hope it doesn't, because Duke Man, it's really fun when Duke's in the Final Four or in the Elite Eight. It's fun to watch those guys. Like we said, it's good to get the eyeballs on it. So I'm with you there. I think Duke can weather the storm for a week or so, but they're going to need him to make a deep elite run. And another team I like, I'll go back and I'll go with you. A team like Missouri, but I like Mississippi State, another physical team, a good playing defense, rebounding the ball, veteran team as well there. Clemson, you mentioned, is another one that can make a run. Teams like Michigan, who have great coaching, can always survive and advance. Utah State's one of these teams, and in that Mountain West Conference that was pretty good. They're a team that might be able to make a run late. But I like Florida a lot too, guys. Florida, Houston, these teams that have proven themselves year in and year out, especially Houston, best defensive team in the country. Your Memphis Tigers, Wayne, if they figure out a way to keep scoring and Penny Hardaway plays the right guys, look, they could get hot. They're in a good bracket. Again, you mentioned Houston's in that bracket.
Yeah.
You've played Houston before in the former AAC, so you have that little rivalry against them, maybe a chip on your shoulder. It's a fairly easy Midwest, I say group of four right there in that Midwest regional. So I really like there's a lot of teams that could get going. Arizona's a good team. I like your Wisconsin throw out name drop out there. West Virginia is a defensive team that you're going to hear me talk about in my next segment that can make a run. But I'm not going to lie. Right now, looking at this bracket, fellas, this could be a chalk type year. You could literally see chalk. You could see 4 SEC teams in that Final Four, as you said, depending on how this bracket sets up, because Florida, Auburn, Tennessee, Kentucky can light it up. Any of these teams could get there with coaching, with the ability to score, and again, Kentucky's offense could carry them alone if they're hitting everything. So there's a lot of teams I just mentioned that have the ability, the coaching, the expertise, and veteran leadership on these clubs. But I like Auburn a lot, Wayne. I think Auburn and Bruce Pearl could be cutting down their first nets. I may have given away my pick early, but I really like Auburn right now. Broom's a player of the year type deal. And again, I like the veteran leadership. Bruce Pearl's been there. Auburn's had some terrible, terrible runs as of late in the tournament. Sometimes I refer to the Virginia treatment. Remember, Virginia lost to a 16 seed. The next year they won the whole thing, and I don't want to remember that Auburn game for you, Wayne.
Well,
but
that was a bad call. That's all I'm going to say.
There was several bad calls down there, but yeah, it's just very, very interesting at the top. This could be one of those chalk type brackets. Wayne, what say you, man? Give me some of your blue bloods, some teams that can make a run, and then what you think Duke is without Cooper Flagg, if that's the case moving forward.
Well, let's cover let's cover the Duke Cooper Flagg issue first. I've seen Duke play on multiple occasions, and I can tell you when you look at their bench, it's almost like looking at fighter jets sitting on a deck of an aircraft ready to go. So don't worry about Duke and one injured player, even if he is seemingly one of the higher scoring players, because there's plenty of cats on that bench who are ready to shine.
Absolutely.
As far as the team that I think will go farther than people expect is surprisingly, I think it's going to be Arkansas. And I think it's because they got Coach Johan Calamari up there, and he's got everything cooking. And right now, I expect them to go farther than people expect. 2 dark horses, Cinderellas, whatever you want to call them. Troy from the Sun Belt Conference, and a team that you mentioned a few weeks ago, the Bryant Bulldogs from the American East. Those are 2 14 and 15 seeds that if you're going to pick Cinderellas, those are the ones you have to pick.
I like the Cinderella talk. It leads us right into it. Unless, Larry, you got any final thoughts about teams making a deep run?
Oh, no, I'm good.
We'll move forward. So Cinderella teams, this was one I've had fun with. You have fun with every year. Look, my number one Cinderella runner right now is the Drake Bulldogs. 30 wins on the season, 30-3 to be exact, 17 2-3 in the Missouri Valley Conference, projected as an 11th seed in the West region right now. Second best defense in all the land, only allowing 58.4 points a game, getting technical there. But boy, Drake can play defense, a little weaker conference, but the Missouri Valley has done well in tournaments prior. You've seen Creighton have success, Southern Illinois in years past making some deep runs. I think the Drake Bulldogs can knock off get maybe a win, maybe even two, and get to that Sweet 16. And that's a pretty good run for a school in the Missouri Valley Conference. So Drake's one of my Cinderella teams. McNeese State, the Cowboys, 27 wins, 6 losses on the season, nearly perfect in their conference play, 19-1 on the season. Just won their second straight Southland title. Also a top 20 defensive unit, only allowing around 64 points a game. So I like McNeese State. You can see I like defensive teams. And this is where I get a little homerism. But why not put the Georgia Bulldogs in there? They haven't won a tournament game in, 20 years? They haven't been there in 10 years. They've only had 6 or 7 20-win seasons, all in the history of the Georgia Bulldogs. So this is a great season, and Georgia plays good defense. They got they got enough older guys and some talented young guys like Blue Kane who can shoot the three when he's open and drive to the basket. He's a good bench player. I like the fact that they block shots at a good rate so they can protect the rim, and I like the fact that they don't have an SEC team in their opening game. So they could win a game or two without having to deal with an SEC opponent. And who knows? Maybe the SEC is just that big and bad this year with 13 teams projected in the field. Maybe that's a boost and a chip on the shoulder saying, oh, well, we just played in such a tough conference. This is easy. So Georgia is one of those teams to look out for to make a Sweet 16 run, maybe a little Cinderella team there. But I had to throw it in there. We're ATL Prime Sports. We don't get a lot of basketball. Right. College basketball it is. We don't get hyped up around here unless Mercer beats Duke or something like that. But the last one, again, these are all Cinderella teams, folks. These are teams 9th seeded or lower that you think can make a deep run. The last one, I'll have West Virginia. Used to call it Press Virginia, top 25 in defense, and they got 4 wins versus top 25 teams. Those are my 4 teams that could make a Cinderella run. Larry, what say you on some Cinderella teams, man? This is where it gets really fun, where you get your St. Peter's. I can't think of the guy's name. I think it was just last year with the mustache, and he just shooting the lights out of the ball. Then you had the guy from Oakland, Michigan, Golke. He just signed a G League contract for Detroit. He was lighting it up. I think, did he beat Kentucky last year, was it? With those 15 3 balls. Had like 40 points or something, like 35 points or something like that. Give me your Cinderellas, Larry. Sorry, I'm getting excited.
No, man, you're good. Now, I agree with West Virginia was my first one, man. I'm telling you, any team that can stymie people defensively has a shot in every game that they play in. And West Virginia has been awesome all season long on the defensive side of the basketball floor. So it wouldn't surprise me at all to see them make some noise and dance. Well, I'm gonna tell you, y'all gonna laugh at these, but this is gonna be funny. But I got an intuition about it. All right, I think Vanderbilt has the ability to make some noise, and I reason I say this is they have played the gauntlet.
Yeah.
Which most of the bottom tier level of those SEC schools that are probably going to get in have played the gauntlet, and they have fared very well. The Commodores always surprise me. You can't never. They are the Jekyll and Hyde of college basketball. They probably play on one of the best college basketball courts in America, but they have played themselves into a good position. I can see them being a Cinderella. I don't quite know if I can put a lot of heart into saying this, but watching them play A&M and them going through so much heart to come away with that victory, Texas could probably make some noise as a Cinderella if they get in, which I think that they should, especially if they continue to play as well as they're playing so far in the SEC tourney. Texas can get in. They can shoot the basketball. You know, they
They
don't
can't.
go into a lot of cold streaks, and people who can shoot the ball are going to keep themselves in the game no matter what their level of defense is. If the name of the game is score more points than the other team. So I think that they have an opportunity to be a Cinderella and get in. My last one, and I thought when the rundown came out, I looked at it and I said, I wonder if they could make some noise. But let me tell y'all, Wayne, when you said Troy,
Yeah.
I remember everything that Dave said when he came on last week
Right.
and how they play a brand of basketball that is almost relied on or relies on athleticism. And when you're as athletic as they are and you can shoot as well and put up as many points as they can put up, you always give yourself a shot. And it would be nice to have a Sun Belt team make some noise in the dance as well. But those are the four that come to mind as Cinderellas for me.
Yeah, lots of good teams out there, lots of teams, and once the brackets are finalized, you'll be able to look at this and say, oh, I like this, I like that matchup a little bit more, and you can pick and choose your death from there. But folks, from there, we are doing another ATL Prime Sports Bracket Challenge. Go to ESPN Tournament Challenge, download the app, fill out your bracket, and when you're searching for groups, search ATL Prime Sports 2025, and that will get you in our group. And we'll probably come up with something like I did last year for our winner, who was gifted a gift card to I can't remember the steakhouse, but got him $50, had a good meal out there, and gave the card. And hopefully a winner take it this year from us and have themselves a fun time. We'll figure out the prize. But yeah, ATL Prime Sports 2025 is the group. ESPN Tournament Challenge. Download the app, fill out your bracket, join our group. Let's have some fun.
Hey, we've already got a couple of people on our group there. Of course, I signed up right away, but it looks like the lead trombone player for the wind ensemble that I'm in is also in there, Mr. Perry Pennington. So that's going to be pretty cool. Get some people outside the bubble, I suppose.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Perry, for signing up for our bracket challenge. That wraps up our discussion, guys. Before I let go, any final thoughts on college basketball before we move forward?
Don't leave out the Alabama. No, you good. I was saying, look, they don't leave out Roll Tide Roll.
No, you're right. Coach Oates and Ryan Nelson, another veteran team. I should have mentioned Alabama. The whole state of Alabama has a real shot. Now, wouldn't that be something, depending on how the brackets met up, if you saw an Auburn-Alabama Final Four like we saw at Duke UNC a couple years ago? How cool would that be, folks?
Yeah. Is Jacksonville State in?
I believe Jacksonville might get in. I don't know.
We have
Troy,
Alabama, Auburn, and Jacksonville State. Go Gamecocks. The other Gamecocks.
Jacksonville, the Dolphins.
No, I was thinking the Jacksonville State that's in Alabama, the Gamecocks.
The Gamecocks.
I'm not sure if they're.
I don't know if they'll get in as an at-large bid or not. Usually, it's tough to get in with these mid-majors with more than 2 or 3 teams. So we'll move from college basketball to NFL free agency, and boy, it's been a fury, fellas. Let's talk real quick. We'll go over the Falcons first. Local team. I got the Falcons hat hanging up. Good or bad so far, Larry? Falcons free agency. Your thoughts, real quick.
Right now, based on what I expected, I'll actually give them, and I'm gonna probably be in the minority, but I'm gonna actually give them a B-. And the reason being is because A, you've helped get at least one pass rusher in Leonard Floyd. The rumblings are out there that they are trying to work deals with 2 other ones, primarily Trey Hendrickson from Cincinnati, which is why if they're asking for number 15 for him, I'll do it 7 days a week and 3 times on Sunday. You re-sign Mike Hughes, which was serviceable enough to be able to handle things. And if you get Hendrickson to go opposite Leonard Floyd, Hughes will be serviceable. He will be serviceable enough in the secondary because he will not have to cover. He will not have to cover as long this upcoming season as he did last season. The losses of Grady absolutely hurt. But he's coming off an injury. He hasn't been able to produce as well as he wanted to. From what we heard, Falcons lowballed him on the offer. So the heart and soul of your defense is now at Chicago. I I don't know much about Devine, the linebacker that was signed from the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't know much about him and his history, but it seems to me he looks on tape very similar to what Troy Anderson is, the linebacker that the Falcons already have. So that helps there when you're talking about depth, because Caden Ellis has been tremendous as a linebacker for the Falcons, one of the best free agent pickups that Terry Fontenot has been able to do. From the looks of the contingent that showed up in Athens for the first time in forever, you're about 3 years late and $7 short, but at least they showed up to Athens during the pro day. So last time they showed up with a contingent like that was when they went to watch one Michael Penix Jr. in Washington, and they ended up drafting him. So I would probably bet you, if the draft falls out the way it needs to, that one of the two highly touted Georgia Bulldog linebacker / edge rushers will probably be one of the ones that the Falcons will take. But if they don't trade the pick, I would love to see them trade down and grab another pick or two, because this is a defensive draft and you need all the defensive help you can get. But that said, I think that they've done what we've expected them to do. They're Dollar Tree shoppers. We can't expect them to be trying to be Neiman Marcus. They're not in the names of the big boys. You just have to get in where you fit in and find value where you can. This team is going to have to be built defensively through the draft. You've got some key pieces at every level. You just need, if you can get the rush right, everything behind the rush will take care of itself. So far, I'll give them a B-, just only because, A, you were able to get Leonard Floyd on a deal that was manageable. I would give them an A++ if they would trade Kirk Cousins before training camp. If they could do that, they would get an A++ from me. But from what we've seen up until this point, I'll give them a solid B-.
I'm not as high as you are. I'll give them a C+ maybe. I didn't like the fact you lost one of your long-tenured players in Grady Jarrett, but I understand it. It's able to free up cap space, and if you're trying to get Trey Hendrickson, a younger defensive edge rusher player, that could really alleviate pressure off of Leonard Floyd on the other side, and you could get the most out of Leonard Floyd right there. So I like that aspect of the potential there. That's why I don't give it a little bit lower of a grade, to be honest. Mike Ford, 2 years, $4 million. Divine Diablo, 2 years, $14 million. He's a linebacker. So that tells me they're not going to try and draft a linebacker. I don't like the fact that you lost your center, Drew Dalman. You're going to have to figure out a way to replace Dalman, who is one of the top 5 players at his position in the NFL per Pro Football Focus. So I really don't like those 2 key losses. I understand the Jarrett one, but I would have tried to franchise tag Drew Dalman because you were able, the cap increased this year, and you were able to clear up that space from Grady Jarrett. I would have liked to have seen the offensive line solidified with Dalman and give him another 2 to 3 year deal. That was the biggest issue I had. I love Leonard Floyd, who's averaged about 8.5 to 9 sacks the last couple of years. Had a pretty good year last time he was in Atlanta, revived his career a little bit before he went to a couple other teams. So I like the Bulldog coming back home, playing in the red and black. I could give it a C+, maybe like that B- range. I don't mind it too much, but I'm more in the C, like a 78 on a graded paper. I just don't see the fact that, again, I just go back. I wanted to see an edge rusher in the building. Myles Garrett was supposedly a rumor. You had the Max Crosby. I would have loved to have seen and going and getting an elite guy instead of trying to draft, because the Falcons only have 5 picks. and it's really tough to hit on all 5 picks. And that's what the Falcons are going to need to do to be extremely competitive moving forward. Now, is it possible? Absolutely. But we'll see what happens. Wayne, your thought on Falcons free agency real quick. I do like the fact that they did re-sign Taquan Graham for another year deal. Like to see his upside. And, of course, Jake Matthews, probably going to be a Falcon for life with his last 2 years, $45 million extension.
Yeah, well, like you, I would like to see as much edge rush interest as possible, because I think getting after the opponent's quarterback is a big deal, especially these days when you got guys who are so quick on their feet and can run that if you can catch them off guard right at the start, you're all the better. But I'd be interested to see if they're going to do anything about special teams as well, because is that something you feel gets overlooked in these situations, or is that something they would rather draft for?
Hey, very, very good point, because with the new kickoff rules, you saw a little bit more kickoff returns than you did in previous years. So maybe that's something they look out for. They did re-sign Kadero Hodge to a 2-year, $6 million deal. And remember, the Falcons do get Rondell Moore back, who they traded backup quarterback Desmond Ridder for last year. So I like what they're doing. I see the light at the end of the tunnel in Atlanta, and I just hope they're able to attract that edge rusher to start to shine on the other side of Leonard Floyd. And I really think, Larry, you do have something there that would really increase your free agency grade in my book if you solidify that edge rusher, or you solidify center in the offseason as well. I know they signed a couple guys, Storm Norton, Brandon Parker, a couple guys, Elijah Wilkinson. These guys could possibly play some center. But I'd like to see that one of the only position besides quarterback that touches the ball on every play is center. And I really like to have that center of your offensive line solidified. It'd be nice to have, and it'd bump my grade up. Let's go around some other interesting signings. We can't go over all of them. It's take 2-3 hours. We're not that type of show. But, guys, let's go over 1 or 2 moves around the league that you found extremely interesting. Larry, we'll start with you, man.
Yeah, I told you my first one, the whole Myles Garrett scenario. That was like, whoa, okay. The Geno Smith to the Las Vegas Raiders was like, who? What? But of course, Pete Carroll wants the same quarterback he had when he was in Seattle, so it makes sense when you think about it and piece it apart. The Sam Darnold of Seattle, I'm like, okay, I see what you're doing. I get it. I understand. Grady Jarrett, though, going to Chicago, I said, that was interesting. You always follow where the Falcons that you didn't sign, where they signed up. And between him and Drew Dalman, I was like, man, them teams, it's just, you're doing what you can do. Unfortunately, the Kirk Cousins contract tied up a lot of different things. So you can't shop like you want to shop, but to each their own. The DK Metcalf trade to the Steelers was like, whoa. I'm like, all right. But the problem there is, who's going to throw him the football? Rumors say it's going to be Aaron Rodgers going back in the black and gold since Justin Fields signed with the Jets. That was signing it was like, oh, okay. And Mac Jones, the former first-round pick from Alabama, going to San Francisco, was one I said, okay, if Brock Purdy don't come through, Kyle Shanahan been able to resurrect some QBs. So those are just a few that were like, okay, and some that was kind of like what the Grady Jarrett not signing here was like when the Rams flat out released a Cooper Kupp. I'm like, oh man, because I still believe that he's got something in the tank. The Joey Bosa to the Buffalo Bills, and them not re-signing Von Miller, Buffalo, they doing God bless them, man. They doing everything they can to try to get past Kansas City. But those are just some off the top of my head that were like, wow, okay. It's musical chairs here, but the rich keep getting richer and the poor can't catch a break.
I'll tell you one that was really interesting to me is the Arizona Cardinals luring away edge rusher Josh Sweat from the Super Bowl champions on a 4-year, $76.5 million deal. That one really stood out to me because Arizona, with Kyler Murray, they're in that window of, hey, we got to get better, or else maybe Kyler Murray's not the deal for us. I really like the Josh Sweat signing. In Baltimore, they obviously signed a wide receiver, DeAndre Hopkins. Remember a couple years ago, I don't remember where it was, but it was DeAndre Hopkins, Lamar Jackson, and Derrick Henry when they were all three on different teams. And they put the caption, how many touchdowns would we score? Well, we get to see that in real life now. So Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, DeAndre Hopkins on the same offense, that's going to be interesting. I also love the re-signing of Josh Allen, the extension, the $250 million guaranteed. Huge contract for the Bills and their guy. They also re-signed edge rusher Greg Rosso, who had a great postseason run. They also signed another wide receiver. They lost Matt Collins. They got Josh Palmer from the Chargers. They also signed Joey Bosa to a 1-year, $12.5 million deal. That was a huge signing. You lose Von Miller. Boom. In comes another veteran edge rusher that can get pressure on the quarterback. And boom. The Bills are cooking with Crisco again. Personally, right now, if I had to throw a dart at it, I'd say the Buffalo Bills are your Super Bowl champion favorites. Carolina Panthers re-signing J.C. Horn, making him the highest paid cornerback was very interesting. Did not see that coming. Kind of thought they'd let that go, but they did it, and pretty easy to see why J.C. Horn is one of those guys. His time was right, and I agree with you with the Chicago Bears signing Grady Jarrett and Drew Dahlman, both to similar money, which is crazy. 3 years, $42 million for Drew. 3 years, $43.5 for Grady. So they paid him an uber amounts of money. There's lots. Gardner Minshew just signed with the Chiefs to back up Patrick Mahomes. So I think that's a quality backup in a system like that. And you mentioned another backup that's going out west. Mac Jones, maybe he backs up Brock Purdy. They're talking about that, but Purdy just signed an extension. He's pretty good. T. Higgins re-signed with the franchise tag. I think that's huge in Cincinnati, but they're losing their edge. They're losing. They re-signed Samaje Perine. There's just so many moves. I could keep scrolling down this list. I think another significant move that might have a starting quarterback come out of it, the Cleveland Browns. I think you mentioned Kenny Pickett earlier in the show, Larry. Kenny Pickett could compete for the job in Cleveland with Deshaun Watson having the torn Achilles being shut down. That's going to be fun to watch. And we could go on to this, but I'm going to get in Wayne. Wayne, is there a free agent that stood out to you, whether it be the Falcons, whether it be anybody else that kind of opened your eyes a little bit?
Well, I've got to admit, and I hope the fans of the show and people that depend on my opinions don't get upset, but I've really been paying a lot more attention to a ball of a different shape, which has a more predictable bounce. So I really hadn't been paying much attention to NFL stuff.
That's just fine. You can do that, Wayne. I'll go back to a couple more, and then Larry, I'll let you get a couple more thoughts in. Your thoughts on Evan Ingram signing with the Denver Broncos? I thought that was a pretty big get, going from Jacksonville to a playoff team and a young quarterback in Bo Nix. Sean Payton out there. He's had success with tight ends in New Orleans especially. Oh, man, I can't think of his name. Huge tight end. Oh, I can't think of his name. He played at Miami.
Yep. Hold on. I see his face. I can't call his name.
I can see him. I think he's still in the league. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Oh, man, it's messing me up. Big tight end, but he's had success with big tight ends out there, and he re-signed Evan Ingram. Your thoughts on that I think that could revitalize his career, help out Bo Nix as well. Oh, what's
No, no
his
doubt.
name?
I'll believe in that, JJ, man. I tell you one that I just thought about as I was getting in the house, and I thought about it. I said, man, the Najee Harris running back that went to the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yes.
I think it's going to be a good pickup for them and Coach Harbaugh, man, to be able to have a perennial 1,000-yard rush. I think Najee Harris's 1,000-yard seasons in Pittsburgh may have been the quietest 1,000 yards that I've ever seen a running back get. And I think it's because 1,000 yards really doesn't mean much now that you've got the extra games tagged on at the end of the schedule. But he's consistent. He's going to help. I believe he's going to help that offense more than people are going to want to give him credit for. And I can't wait to see how Coach Harbaugh uses him. But I think that's a good signing too, JJ.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Kansas City Chiefs, again, I mentioned Gardner Minshew to back up Patrick Mahomes. They got running back Elijah Mitchell. They use running backs in unique ways out there. That could be a really, really big trade. And I like what you said about Geno Smith reuniting with Pete Carroll. I think retaining edge rusher Max Crosby was huge for that organization. Pete Carroll knows how to win. And there's many that we missed. We know, folks, but we're just shooting the stuff here and having some fun with free agency. But I think we all agree it's been one of the more frenzied free agencies in recent years where you see stars just moving left and right, and especially DeAndre Hopkins, a player that's had a lot of touchdowns, a lot of experience in big plays and deep threats. And I think him going from, one Super Bowl contender to another, that's gonna be one of my highlights. And it might be one you look at if Baltimore gets over the hump. Just like I said with Buffalo re-signing their guys, maybe it's the one that gets them over the hump. It's Josh Palmer. Maybe that guy gets them over the hump as well. We'll see. Guys, any quick final thoughts on NFL free agents before we wrap it up with our final thoughts?
No, I had thought about the tight end. It came to me when you was talking about it just then when you said the name. It's Jimmy Graham.
Jimmy Graham, that's it. I couldn't think of his name. Boy, he was awesome with Sean Payton.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's it. Thank you, Jimmy Graham. Man, fantasy stud if you've played fantasy football. So, yeah, lots and lots. Minnesota Vikings re-signed Aaron Jones to a 2-year, $20 million deal. And, again, we can go on and on and on about these. I can't wait to see what the Falcons do moving forward in the draft, moving forward with free agency. Maybe they're able to trade for Henderson. Maybe they're able to sign him outright. Who knows what happens there? But, folks, again, if you like our content, please like, subscribe at ATL Prime Sports across the board. Travel over to that like button and give it a push. Hit that notification button as well so you get notified with our latest content. We'll go from NFL free agency to our final thoughts. Larry, tee it off for our final thought of the evening, buddy.
Let's go Hawks. I know we don't talk a lot of basketball on here that is of the NBA variety, but let me tell y'all, what's cooking at State Farm Arena. Your Atlanta Hawks are winners of 5 straight. Trae Young has been doing Trae Young things, but don't look now. Your number 1 overall draft pick, Zachary Risache, has been coming into his own here over the last 10-game stretch. They are cooking at the right time. They are finally, quote unquote, as healthy as they've been, minus the whole Jalen Johnson season-ending injury and the Kobe Buffkin one. You got to give props to the trade that came through. I know we missed DeAndre Hunter, but Karis LeVert and Terrence Mann have been absolutely awesome. Georgie Jang has just been filling in where he needs to be. And Onyeka Okongwu, since being inserted into the starting lineup, has continued to produce double-double after double-double. Don't look out now, folks, but for the first time in forever, probably since the Eastern Conference run of 2021, the Atlanta Hawks could possibly make some noise in the playoffs. Buckle up. It's about that time.
I hope so. We do need to try and get more NBA talk in here. I just honestly, It's tough to fit it in with all the college basketball, baseball, and NFL free agency and the year-round talk of the NFL. My final thought revolves around our bracket challenge again. Please sign up. ESPN Tournament Challenge, either the website, go through all the clicks, or just download the Tournament Challenge app, fill out your bracket, and search ATL Prime Sports 2025. That's our group. No password, no nothing. It's open to the public. Tell your friends. And we're that much closer. What are we, 14 days out from opening day as I speak? I cannot wait. Braves open up. West Coast trip, San Diego, then Dodgers. We'll see how good this Atlanta Braves roster is right off the rip. Wayne, you're sending this off, buddy. What you got?
Well, tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern, noon Central, Memphis will be playing the Wichita State Shockers over in Fort Worth at the I forget the name of that, Dickies Arena.
Dickies Arena, or
right?
Dickies
And
Center,
Wichita State is one of two teams that has beat us in our conference. Temple being the other one. So this is going to be a tough game. Even I'm sure Memphis is favored, but I always get the feeling that Wichita State has our number for some reason.
It's possible. Hey, it's March and madness can happen at any given moment. Folks, thanks for listening. For Wayne in Memphis, the PA voice of your Rome Emperors, Larry up there in beautiful Adairsville, Georgia. I'm JJ Jurjevich right here in Lilburn, where's Georgia. And thanks for watching. Again, ATL Prime Sports across the board. TC, have a good call. He's at the ACHA Nationals in St. Louis, Missouri. We'll see you next week, where the brackets will be set. The 68 will be in, and we'll be talking a little bit more college basketball. And Larry, we'll get some NBA next week, man. We'll try and get an NBA guest or something. Stay tuned, and we'll see you all next week. Everybody have a good night. See you. Get you one.